All right. And greetings and welcome to today's session of Truly Foundation and A Course in Miracles with your host, your temporary guide, your temporary coach, and your temporary teacher, Oliver Blue. And I am delighted that we are back and we are going to be sharing another workbook lessons out of our course study book, A Course in Miracles. And if you have been around us anytime over the last year and a half, you know that in these sessions, our main goal is to help all of us, all of us, all of us. This is an all thing. And the purpose is to help all of us to come to a place in our life journey where we pause but recognize our true self, our true identity, who we really, really are at the core, at our essence. And so this journey that we've been on mainly has been about our identity. From my own personal point of view, I think the world has been in an identity crisis for a long time, a very long time. I know 28 out of the 64 years of my living, and probably a little longer than that. I say 28. 28 is when I got on the path. But it was really in 2005 that I really came to know with certainty who I was. And A Course in Miracle has a lot to do with that. But I started my spiritual journey back in when I was 28. So, and so that's one reason I'm so passionate about what I do here on this platform, how I use this nonprofit organization. And the passion really is motivated by my own experience of coming into the knowledge of my true self and experiencing my true self and accepting the truth of who I was. And so, with that said, tonight we're going to be continuing our study in the section of the workbook lessons called What is a Miracle? And this is going to be maybe our 8th lesson, where we are just continuing to unpack what the Course in Miracle calls a true miracle. And it has everything to do with the way we see things, with the way we perceive, more so than it has to do with changing something in form or bringing about some supernatural experience. That's an idea that we've been indoctrinated with, that's what constitutes a miracle. But from a Course's perspective, a miracle merely is a correction in our perception. It's a correction in the way that we see things. It's a correction in the way that we look at things. So the implication here is that our perception is distorted, or our perception is in error, or the way we perceive is erroneous. And we say that error in perception comes from an idea that we all collectively bought into, called separation. Separation is at the root of all error and at the root of all mistakes, the belief in separation. And so the Course says that is the only thing that really needs to be healed in our life, is our belief in separation. We need to let that go. And the reason we need to let it go is because it's not true. It's not real. It's not even possible for us to be separate from our Creator and from one another. And accept the atonement, meaning atonement simply means that there is nothing but the one thing, or the one being, or the one self, or the one love, the one reality, and that we all share that same one reality. And so, in other words, separation says, the idea of separation says nothing is joined. The idea of oneness says there's only one. As the Course says, will oneness join as one? And so, just the ideas themselves create a whole effect, or called a thought system. We think a certain way, or we perceive in a certain way when we believe in separation. On the contrary, we think a certain way and we perceive in a certain way when we're coming from a place of oneness, that there is but the one. And so the miracle is when that perception based on separation or duality is what's running our life, is what's determining how we think and how we feel and our actions and our outcomes and our results, which in many cases we don't like. When that is at the root, or that is the root cause of our perceiving in such a way that it doesn't bring peace to us, and that's what needs to be corrected. And so here it says the miracle is the correction. Miracle is the correction. And it also says that the miracle undoes error in our perception or in our thinking. It paves the way for the return of reality, as though reality has gone somewhere, as though our true identity has taken a hiatus, as though love doesn't exist, as though God is in one place and we're in another. That's what the whole idea here is. And so this return that it talks about here, the return of reality, is basically a recognition of what is already present. It's basically an awakening to what's already is unchangeable and unalterable. That is you, the real you, that loves you. The guiltless you, the sinless you, the perfect you, the God you, the undisturbed you, the loving you. And so it's a rediscovery of what has always been. You know, the Course talks about we're on this journey without a distance. In other words, we're on this journey, and it's not a lateral journey, but it's more of a vertical journey where we just wake up to what is. We just wake up to what is, that was always there, that has always been there, that will always be there, that is unalterable and unchangeable, that is infinite, and that is our true self, our true identity. And so that is the miracle. And it goes on to finally say that the miracle inverts perception. It turns the right side. It says it turns us back to a right side up perception, because all of us have been indoctrinated and trained with an upside down perception about who we are. No one comes in this world remembering who they are. We all come into this world and we immediately begin to get trained and conditioned in an identity that is not accurate, that is erroneous, that is false. And we all take on this persona of this individual self, born in a body. And ultimately, that body leads to death. And we identify that as ourself, and that is not who we are. But we all have to wake up or reawaken to the truth of who we are. And so it's almost like we come here to forget who we are, only to discover who we are. It's like a game, right? We call it the God game. When we were kids, we played this game called hide and go seek. Hide and go seek. And it's almost like our life journey is parallels that game. We hide and then we go seek ourselves. It's almost like God hides himself and then he goes finds himself. The prodigal son, he hides out in a world and he finally discover who he is, and he returns home. See? Just look at your life. I can say with confidence that your life has an element of hide and go seek. I can confidently say that you can find a story in your life or anyone's lives where the basis of it was a forgetting who they are, seeking who they are, and rediscovering who they are, all in one lifetime or many lifetimes. And so that's what the miracle is simply a correction. Doesn't say anything here about it being some supernatural event. In fact, it's the most natural thing that happens among humanity. It's the most natural thing that happens in your life. Some point in your life, you come to the conclusion that there must be a better way than you have been going. There must be a better way of thinking, a better way of being. There must be a different way of seeing, of perceiving. That's what seeing is, perceiving, interpreting, understanding. There must be a different understanding than I have now. The author of the book of Proverbs says, in all you're getting, in all your life experience, it says, get understanding. Why? Because it's the principal thing. To understand, to stand under, that's what perception is. It's to stand under another's point of view. Understand, you get under. It's almost like mentorship. It's almost like being coached. You stand up under another's vision, another's sight, another's experience. And out of that relationship comes what? Understanding. That's another purpose for truly foundation being here. Is to be a temporary guide, a temporary teacher, a temporary coach. And I say temporary, why? Because all of us have this internal, all of us have this internal coach, this internal teacher. All of us have this internal guide that is in all of us, that is omnipresent, that is omniscient, and that is omnipotent, all powerful, all knowing, and everywhere present. That is within all of us. And for those that have activated that in themselves becomes responsible for being the light, allowing that light or the love of light to shine through them so that others can what? Can gently wake up to their what? To their internal teacher. And so it is just a correction to a falsity that in reality doesn't even exist, as the Course says. So we're going to jump on over to our lesson for today, 349. 349. And that's on page 478 in the Workbook for Student section of A Course in Miracles, if you're following along. All right. So today's thought or today's idea goes like this. It says, today I let Christ's vision. Today I let Christ's vision look upon all things for me. When we talk about Christ's vision is just metaphoric for the one vision that we all share with God. That word Christ is only a word that represents or is symbolic of our oneness with each other, including God, including all living things. I know we like to reference this word to identify one person's incarnation, but I think in so doing, we miss the bigger picture. We misunderstand, like we said, we misunderstand the essence of what is really present, of really what's going on, what is really the meaning, the grander, greater meaning of this thing called life. And so here, when we look through the eyes of oneness, which is through the eyes of Christ, it opens up our perception, it opens up our awareness, it opens up our understanding, so that we begin to experience reality at a whole new level. We begin to experience ourselves at a whole new level. We begin to experience others at a whole new level. And so today I let Christ's vision, Christ's perception, I let the mind of Christ, you can put it that way. I let the mind of God, you can put it in those terms. I will allow love. I let reality look upon all things for me, for this separated perception of myself, which is very limited. So I let the unlimited look upon all things for my limited self and judge them not. And so through Christ's vision, or through the vision of God, God judges nothing. In reality, love doesn't judge anything. God doesn't judge anything. As controversial as that may sound to our present disposition, there is no judgment. The judgment has been rendered. God rendered judgment in creation when he judged himself as the only one self that exists. And so the only thing that could be created or extended was God's very own self and the very nature of God. And that's it. Only reality. So it's in that judgment was rendered and judgment ended. And in reality, from that point, there's been no judgment. But we created a whole world. When I say we, humanity, we created this whole world based on judgment, based on separation. And we've been judging ourselves and judging the world from the beginning of time. And we can see the effects of our judgments, which are in error, which are not correct, which has brought about all of the pain and sorrow in the world. And we blamed it on God. We blame it on love. The God must be an angry God. God must be a vengeful God. God must be a jealous God. You know how we've made and recreated God in our own image. We have brought God down to a ego person with feelings and emotions. And that's the farthest from reality. God is love. God is light. In God, there is no darkness. In love, there is no darkness. In reality, there is no darkness. There is no judgment. There's no guilt. There's no sin. There's no consciousness of sin. There's no such thing as sin in reality. It's what we have made up. It's what we have danced with. It's what we have hid and we have went and sought after. So, but today we're going to let Christ's vision. We're going to look through this thing. We're going to look at this thing differently. We're going to look through the mind of Christ or the mind of God at all things. Where there is no judgment. Can you imagine life without no judgment? Can you imagine a world without judgment of any form? How would that look? How would that feel? How would the outcomes be different than today? If there was no judgment, if there was no guilt, if there was no sin consciousness, if there was no fear. You know, scripture says that fear has torment. It torments one. And to think that there is a future judgment that will determine your eternal rest, that's tormenting. That is not love. That is not God's love. That's the kind of love that we create. Out of fear, sin consciousness, and guilt. But here, today, we make a choice to let Christ's vision look upon all things for us and judge them not. But on the contrary, gives everything that it looks upon a miracle of love instead. And what's the miracle of love? What is the miracle of love? Jesus said it over there in Matthew, what? In Matthew 5, I believe. The miracle of love is what? All things are pure. All things are pure. All things are pure. And then he went on to say that the pure in heart shall see God in everything, saying the same thing. Why? Because the perception is correct. When you look through the mind of love or the mind of God or the mind of Christ, however you want to put it, or the mind of reality, where there's only love, all things are pure. All things are light. Why? Because all things are God. And that's the way we can, and that's the way we will see things once we awaken. Once we recognize the truth that is true always. The Course says that the miracle, or the how did the Course say? It says enlightenment is not a change. It's not an outward change, but it's a recognition of what is. It's a recognition of what is. It's not an outward change. But when we focus 99% of our energy in the outer world, when we have given ourselves over to the programming of this world to live from the outside in instead of from the inside out, we don't recognize the cause, because we are all entangled in the effects of this world, the effects of life, the world of form, the world of objects. And we're looking in form and looking at the objective world, trying to find ourselves, trying to find our peace, trying to find our balance. And it's not there because God did not place it there. He placed it in you. That's where He placed it. And He placed it in you as His very own self, as not something that is separate from God, but it's one with God. So the seeking and the hiding and the seeking that we play with in our life, this prodigal journey that we say we go on. Is so unnecessary. Because in all of that effort and all of that energy and all of that suffering and pain and all of the thrills, we haven't affected anything. Like Jesus said, we have not added one thing to our statue. Why? Because we remain as God created us. We remain as we were created from the very beginning, as these infinite, self-aware beings, as this innocent being, as this whole and complete beings, at the very creation of God. We cannot alter any of our essence in this journey called life. We can't undo what God did. We can only embrace it. And then we can express it. Because we realize that we are it. And so, this is the miracle that love gives to what? Everything. No judgment. No judgment. Can you imagine living a life where there is no judgment, given or received? That sounds like a life of freedom. That sounds like a life of bliss. That sounds like a life where all things are the one thing. It sounds like a life Well, oneness is really joined as one. And so let's see what the lesson says. Now that we have allowed ourselves to let Christ's vision look upon all things for us today and judge them not, but give them the gift of the miracle of love instead. Love instead of judgment. I love that formula. Love instead of judgment. Because in love, there is no judgment. In God, there is no judgment. God don't have to judge anything. God knows that all things are pure. And he knows that when the mind is renewed, when the mind is transformed to its original state, it will see the same way. It would perceive in the same way. It will know in the same way, and there'll be no judgment. So the true goal in life is the renewing of the mind. The one thing that we all have to engage in. It's unavoidable. It's God's plan for salvation. For the mind to be transformed to its original state. And so that is the work of God. That is our work while we're here. To not be conformed or conned, to not be conned by the ego thought system of this world, to not be conformed to it, to not be molded to the way of thinking and the way of being of this world that has its basis in separation, sin consciousness, guilt, and fear. But to be transformed by the renewing of the mind. That is our work. That is the work of God. That is the work of you and me. That is the work of Christ. To transform the mind, to renew the mind, which is the activating agent of spirit. It is that mechanism by which we access all the power, all the knowledge, all the wisdom of God. It is a mechanism also by which we access this three-dimensional world. And this three-dimensional world was never given the responsibility to train us or to wake us up. No. That can only be accessed through the open portals that is within you by way of the mind. By way of the mind. The mind is important in this experience that we're having. It is the central, most important element of our living experience. Because all things is what? All things happens in the mind. First, then in form. And so, it says, so this being the case, that we have yielded our will to the one will of God, to allow us to not be a part of any judgment. Instead, we choose love. So, would I liberate all things that I see because of the miracle of love? Will I now liberate? Will I now let free all things that I see? It says, and give them the freedom that I seek. So kind of like a rhetorical question. For thus do I obey the law of love. and give what would find and make my own. So that's the law of love. Give and it shall be given. Give what you want to be given, because that's the law of love. Every seed produces after its own kind. So if you give judgment, you're going to receive judgment. If you give love, all you're going to get is love. And that's where the freedom is. You have the freedom. You have the free will. Now that you know that your nature is love. Now that you know that you're in your true nature, there is no judgment. There is no condemnation. There is no separation. There is no sin or sin consciousness or guilt or fear. That all things are pure. And so you give this purity so that you receive the purity that you give. That is the law of love. And give what I will find and make my own. It will be given me. Give and it shall be given. Give and it shall be given. What shall be given? What you give. That explains all of our lives experiences. We have what? Receive what we have been given. And if we've been receiving that which pains us, if we have been receiving that which we do not like, we need to examine what we're giving, because it's an indication of what we're giving. What we're receiving is results or outcomes. And these results and outcomes, they leave clues to what we've been giving. So if our life is full of what we don't want, that means that we've been giving what we don't want. If our life has been filled with the loveliness of the things that we want and the things that we cherish, that means we've been given those things. Take an examination. It will be given me because I have chosen it as the gift I want to give. And so our Creator and the system that we operate in, the law of love, the kingdom of God, as Scripture says, it says, this is our gift. Our creation is our gift. This kingdom is our gift. This way of being, this way of operating is our gift. We can be absolutely certain of our outcomes because we know the law of love, and the law of love said, give and it shall be given. And so what we give is what we receive. What we give is what we have received. But God has given us this gift. It's called love. God has given us this gift. The greatest gift in life is we can be certain about. We can be certain that the law operates equally and fairly. We can be certain about it. And so that's why it eliminates the need to judge anything. Because everything is being what? Everything that is given is being received. And everything that's been received has been given. That is the law of God, the law of love. So no one really gets out, without the law of love in operation. It might appear on the surface that there's inequality or there's injustice. But believe me, it ain't. There is no injustice or misjustice in the kingdom of God. In life, things may not settle up every day, but they settle up. Believe me. I'm convinced of it after 64 years. Because I have chosen it as the gift I want to give. Father, your gifts are ours. Each one that I accept gives me a miracle to give. And giving as I would receive, what you will have for your brother, you will have for yourself, because you and your brother are one. That's what it means here. The giving I would receive. Giving is what you're going to receive. What you give is what you have received. You might say, I don't see it that way. And so when you don't see it that way, you're in judgment. So when you're in judgment, you're getting judged according to your judgment and not according to the law of love. But you're being judged based on your judgment, which has in it the element of what? Separation, sin consciousness, guilt, and fear. So the law of love still is at work. And giving what I would receive, I learn that our Creator's healing miracles belong to all of us. By giving what we will receive. This is the miracle of love. This is the miracle of healing. This is the evidence. It's the substance of our reality. That give and it shall be given unto you in the same manner. Judge not that you be not judged, for the same judgment you meet, it shall be measured back to you. This is the law of God. This is the law of love. And it's our safety because it is consistent. You can bank on it. You can lay your life on it, on the law of love, which is the only law that there is. And so our Father knows what we need. Our Creator knows what we need and has given us the grace to meet them all. Notice now, He's given us the grace to meet all that we perceive that we need. Our last lesson talked about God's grace is sufficient. God's grace suffices us all. God's system, God's righteousness, God's love. It is perfect and it's pure and it's whole. And it's at operation. It is what is at operation. It is what is ultimately determining everything. The love of God. And the good news is we are not separate from that love. We are that love by our essence and our nature. And once we bring our mind into alignment with that, into harmony with that, into integrity with that, we present ourselves as love. That's the identity that we've been looking for. That's what we have hid from ourselves and went looking for it in the wrong places. Our identity is love. Our identity of love, wherein there is no judgment, where there is no sin, there is no guilt, there's no condemnation, there is no fear. It is always present and is already present. And I'm simply here to remind you of who you are. I'm simply here to assist in your awakening by sharing these truths that are already resonant in you and in everyone. So all our needs have been met. They were met in creation. That's what grace is. That we was given all things in creation richly to enjoy, as scripture says. When we wake up, we start resisting and repelling those things. But we get in harmony with those things. And so we trust our Creator to send us miracles to bless the world. And heal our minds. See? So all of this is about the blessing that we give to the world and the healing of our minds. They go hand in hand. There is no blessings to give if the mind is not healed. The mind must be healed. The mind must be renewed. As we return on this journey without a distance. As we return on this journey that is without a distance. In other words, we remain in the heart of God, where we always have been and where we always will be. Getting home is not something in the future, but getting home is waking up to the reality that you're already there. When you wake up from a sleeping dream that had you around the world and in all kind of different places, when you wake up from that dream, you realize that you are in the same place that you were when you fell asleep. You was laying in your bed, safe and sound. Likewise, when you really wake up to your true self, when I or anyone awakens to the oneness that they share with their Creator and with all living things, there is this discovery that we remain in the heart of God, that we have not gone anywhere. It was all a dream. It was all a nightmare. It was all a hallucination. It was all a fantasy. It was all vain imaginings. That we imagine ourselves to be something that we're not, that we imagine ourselves separate from our Creator, that we imagine ourselves in a world of billions and billions of ununited things and ununited people. It was all a dream. And when we awake to reality, we awake to our true identity, when we awake to the reality of our oneness with God, that there is no separation, that there is no sin, that there is no guilt, that there is no judgment. But we awaken to the liberality, to the freedom that was given to us at creation. That's what Jesus meant when he said, who the Son has set free is free indeed. So it's about your freedom. It's about your liberality. It's It's about your wholeness or your holiness. You are the holiness of God. You are the holy home of God. You are the light of the world, as our elder brother said. That you have been glorified with the same glory that the Father is. That when we have seen you, we have seen the Father. That I and the Father are one. All that is the gift that was given. And it's the gift that when we receive that which is already given, that's when we will in turn begin to give the very gifts that was given to us by God. And when we give the gifts that God has given unto us, there's only one expectation of what we're going to receive. The very thing that we gave, which is love. So it's not a vicious cycle. It becomes what? A lovely cycle of continuous giving and receiving of love. Imagine that. Imagine a world where there's only giving and receiving of love versus this world of foolishness that we we observe every day. So, in conclusion, lesson 349. Today, we let the vision of God, we let the sight, we let the perception, we hold on to the insight of God. And we look on all things with no judgment. But we give all things a miracle of love, because that's all we have to give, because we realize that we are love. And we no longer operate from this false identity. We no longer operate from this place of fear, a place of lack, or place of limitation. But the love that we share with God and each other is sufficient. It heals all things. And we give this instead. All right. That's our workbook lesson 349. And we are one more lesson away from completing this section on what is a miracle. And so we'll be back for our next session. And we're going to be unpacking workbook lesson 350. And then from there, we move into our last section, the finale, the grand finale. We're going to move into the grand finale of our workbook lessons. In the last section, we're going to be talking about who am I? We're going to answer that question, which we've already answered it, but we're going to answer it in a way of finality. But guess what? It's not. It won't be the final answer. It'll only be the beginning. All right. So until next time, go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no man evil for evil. Strengthen the faint in heart and support the weak. Help the afflicted and honor all men. Love and serve love. Always rejoicing in the power of your holiness. And so we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.